growing up, I'm understanding that anyone with any sort of chronic illness will tell you the mental effect that it has on them. You're a man who has a chronic illness which could be considered as a weakness. And you know, men don't like to feel like they're weak, or, you know what I'm saying, they like to feel like they're on top of things. But that's something that also plays on our mind, man. It's affected my mental health a lot. Like suicidal thoughts, depression, internal pain will affect your mental health.
All right, guys, wait, hold up. So we looked at the analytics, and apparently 25% of you who watch this podcast are not subscribed. Now, that doesn't make sense, because if you're watching this podcast, then you clearly like it and you clearly want more. So the best way to get more is to subscribe. And guess what? Even do another thing, subscribe. Hit that little bell button and put the notifications on. So when we post this exquisite content, right, you'll get it directly in your notifications. So subscribe right now. Thank you.
A Star, thanks for joining me, man.
Yes, bro.
So I just literally want to start off with, what is sickle cell? Let's talk about sickle cell. Just give me a quick explanation of what sickle cell is.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, sickle cell is a hereditary disease that affects over 15,000 people in the UK only, but, you know, mostly black people around the world. It also affects Asian and white people, but predominantly black people. It's a hereditary disease that affects the red blood cells. So for everyone's normal red blood cells are round shape, but for people with sickle cell, SS, that's the hemoglobin. So you have AA, which you have no sickle cell hemoglobin, and then you have HB AS, which is the trait, but we have SS, myself and you, and those who have full-blown sickle cell. And normal red blood cells are round shape, but for those who have sickle cell, have a kind of crescent shape red cells. And in times of, you know, exhaustion, cold, extreme weather, stress, literally anything.
Cold temperature outside.
Cold temperature, anything could bring on a crisis. Dehydration. Your blood cells get clogged up, so it's difficult for them to carry oxygen around the body, and it causes excruciating pain in joints, muscles, all around the body. And that's what you call sickle cell crisis. So usually someone who does have sickle cell, it's hereditary, so it comes from the parents both may have the trait, one may have full-blown and one may have the trait or whatever it is. But personally for me, my parents, my mom has full-blown sickle cell, my dad has a trait, and it wasn't the discussion that was had when they came together, which means I got full-blown sickle cell. So yeah.
I know you're enjoying this conversation, but I'm here to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Goodman Beard Oil, plant-based, chemical-free beard oil to soften and moisturize your facial hair. Order now, goodmanfactory.com, and use code GPOD1 and become a good man today. Just give me a little explanation of like how it feels and what you go through when you go through a crisis. A lot of people tend to ask me, when you're in crisis, what does it mean? How does it feel? Like, just tell me how it feels, like, just raw.
It's just unexplainable, man. Like, people say, I remember when I was young and the nurses used to say, do you have pins and needles? And I'll say, yeah, I've got pins and needles. And now I'm growing up thinking, bro, pins and needles is nothing compared to what we go through, bro. So it's just excruciating pain. It's like a crushing sort of pain, different kind of pain in your body. You can have crisis in your legs, arms. The worst is when it's in my chest. Acute chest crisis is the worst. You can, anywhere where blood flows in your body, which is everywhere, you can have a crisis. I've had one in my face, legs, hands, everywhere. Do you know what I'm saying? And you know, bro, the pain that we go through when we have a crisis, like, the only treatment for that would be something like, unfortunately, things like morphine. That, you know, people end up getting addicted to and things like that.
And those are strong painkillers, like strong. That's what they use in the war. Like soldiers use morphine when they're on the battlefield. Right. So that's the kind of painkillers that we take when we're having a crisis. Like, it's that serious. I'll describe the pain that I go through as like unexplainable. Like, I'll try my hardest to explain, but you know, when people go, when you go gym and your muscles are aching, I'm like, that's heaven. The pain, the pain from gym is heaven compared to sickle cell crisis. A sickle cell crisis is one of the most extreme pains any man or any woman can go through, or any child. And to think, we've been going through these traumatic experiences from when we were born. What's
your earliest experience of having a crisis?
So I heard a story of when I was 1 year old, and that was my first crisis. I think there was swelling in my body, and my parents were like, what's going on? But I don't remember any moment in my life where I didn't have sickle cell. So that's all. Sickle cell is all I know. Having a crisis is all I know. It's something I've experienced from young. But yeah, it's been a crazy journey. Growing up, I was very stubborn. I didn't want to accept that I've got sickle cell. I did everything to remain normal. And I think maybe when I got to age 17, that's when I accepted that, okay, I am not normal. And I still say it till today, I'm not normal. I'm special. And I'm special because my body works different to the normal person. So I have to take care of my body in a different way. And over the years with maturity, I've learned to master that. I understand my body better. I know what this sign means. I know what that sign means when something shows up or something's about to flare up. So I know how to handle it. So yeah, that's.
Do you think that's automatically made you like a calm, reserved person because of that?
Yeah, I think definitely sickle cell has shaped me. And I quite love the way it shaped me because it's made me who I am today. So everything I am today, I would give thanks to me having sickle cell. And I can't imagine who I would be and what I would be like without sickle cell.
If you didn't have it. It's kind of made us, we had to mature very quickly, had to grow up very quickly on a mental level where, right, I can't just get up and go on a 2-hour bike ride with my boys, because I did that once and I had a crisis. I can't do what everyone else is doing. So when you have that mindset, it's like, right, things start being more calculated. Let me be wise in making that decision. Do I really need to go out this day? Do I really need to do that this day? Because it can affect me and my health. So I feel like a lot of people with sickle cell had to grow up quickly because you're mature, you're thinking about life, you're thinking, right, this will just end me up in hospital. I'm not going to go and skydive naked because I know that, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the consequences.
Exactly. Yeah. So having to, and then that, what happens is, it plays out in your life decisions. Do you know what I'm saying? You start to become wise in other decisions you have to make in life because of that.
Do you know what? I've never actually looked at it from that point of view. What you're saying is so true because I believe that I'm very calculated in my decision making, especially the things that impact every area of my life. Everything's done with intent. So who knows? The reason why I may have this mindset is because of...
I definitely think it's because of that, bro.
Right.
Definitely. Because no one wants to go to hospital all the time. Do you know what I'm saying? So unfortunately, with people like us having sickle cell, we've had times where it's been weeks back to back or months back to back. You come out, have another crisis going. Come out, have another crisis going. So you start to feel like, right, what can I do? Eat, drink, exercise. What can I do to look after myself more so that these things don't happen? So I know we both know if it's -1 degrees outside, we're not going out. There's no reason for us to be outside. We're inside and it's heaters. So these things, because we're having to think ahead, way ahead, to the point we're going on holiday. You know what I'm saying? Going on holiday, booking holidays, going to work, going to social events, all of these things, we have to think ahead. And because of that, we're like, nah, we're more calculated and I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to do that, or vice versa. And then it just plays out in your life decisions. It's crazy, bro. But I started deepening it more. The more I grew up, like, man, like, a lot of decisions I've made, like, even though I still make some rubbish decisions, but a lot of it, I have to realize that I had to grow up quickly because of my health. You've got to look after yourself because your parents are not always there. Your peers are not always there. There's times where you're at home alone and you're like, right, I got to make a wise decision that will not end up me being in hospital. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know you're enjoying this conversation. but I'm here to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Goodman Beard Oil, plant-based, chemical-free beard oil to soften and moisturize your facial hair. Order now, goodmanfactory.com, and use code GPOD1 and become a good man today. I think another challenge with having sickle cell is the mental battle that we deal with. As much as we talk about how having a sickle cell crisis is like the physical pain and the discomfort that we go through, I think one of the biggest battles is the mental battle in our heads. So it's just like when it comes down to how having sickle cell affects us mentally. What would you say is like one of some of the challenges that you've gone through when it comes to like your mental health having sickle cell?
I think firstly, understanding and accepting the fact that it affects me, coming to terms with the fact that it affects me mentally as well as physically. So like, you know, I share this story a lot, but it's something that the more I think about it, the more I realize how traumatizing it's been growing up. So I grew up in a single parent home with my mum, and she has sickle cell. So there was a time specifically I remember where I was in hospital and my doctor's coming to tell me that my mum's in hospital too. So she's had a crisis after I've had a crisis. So I remember leaving my hospital bed, leaving my ward to go down in the same hospital, down the corridor to another ward to see my mum in hospital. I was young, so I'm thinking this is the norm. I'm sick, my mum's sick. But growing up, I realized that it played with me mentally, man. It played with me because I still have thoughts of how it is. And because my mum's supposed to be looking after me, and now I'm feeling like I have to look after my mum, but we can't both look after each other because we're being looked after from nurses and doctors. So growing up, I'm understanding that anyone with any sort of chronic illness will tell you the mental effect that it has on them, where, you know, you feel down, man. Like, I'm in hospital crying and I'm thinking, Lord, I don't, what is this? I don't want to have this on me all the time. And, you know, sometimes you have things like, especially with us men, you know, there's always a stigma of be strong, man up, and all of that stuff. And sometimes you don't feel like that when you're going through pain and your body's literally telling you, I'm in pain. So there's nothing much you can do. You can't just go and lift weights and then the pain goes away, bro. Like, do you know what I'm saying? You're a man who has a chronic illness which could be considered as a weakness. And you know, men don't like to feel like they're weak, or, you know what I'm saying, they like to feel like they're on top of things. But that's something that also plays on our mind, man. It's affected my mental health a lot, like suicidal thoughts, depression. And these are huge words that just have hit everywhere now and everyone's using it on social media, but it's real life, bro.
Yeah.
Real life, man. Like, internal pain will affect your mental health.
Definitely.
And it's something we don't discuss enough.
I know you're enjoying this conversation, but I'm here to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Goodman Beard Oil, plant-based, chemical-free beard oil to soften and moisturize your facial hair. Order now, goodmanfactory.com, and use code GPOD1 and become a good man today. What do you do to counter the mental battles that you go through? Like, how do you deal with it? Like, what would you advise people with sickle cell to do to deal with it? Is that something that you're dealing with well? Is it something that you're still learning about? And
it's still up and down for me, bro. I think one thing that did help me was therapy.
Okay.
So when I was doing therapy, I'm about to go back into it. But when I was doing therapy, what I was feeling inside, I was able to speak about it. But also, child life traumas that affected me, where sickle cell was involved and not involved as well, because I felt like a lot of my traumatic experience everything we go through plays onto our health. So you could be stressed because of work, bro, and that stress will cause you to have a crisis. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, same. So understanding that all of these stressful events that happened in my youth affected my health. Being able to speak to a therapist about that is freeing. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I would advise anyone who has sickle cell or any chronic illness to go to therapy. Okay. Because there's some things we have to keep in. You know, I come from a family where my parents told me don't talk about your issues, your illness to anyone. Right, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, in some cultures, especially, you know, the African culture, in some cultures, they would say, don't talk about this to anyone, or, you know, don't speak it out loud that you have sickle cell. But this is a genuine issue that I have. Not an issue, but it's an illness that I have, and it's affecting me. And if I'm keeping it in all the time, what's going to happen when I've kept it in for 10, 20 years? You're going to explode one day. Yeah. So it's important to have a talk about it. And I feel like places like the NHS, they provide free counselling for people who have things like sickle cell. So that's a great place if you don't want to go private and have your own therapist. So that's a good way of me personally dealing with it. But also just the more I talk about it, the more I get comfortable speaking about it, letting people know what it is. And I don't like when people have this kind of pity vibe on me, like, oh, I feel sorry if you don't feel sorry for me. Let's help me make a change. So I encourage Black people to go and donate blood. You know, wherever I work, I always speak about sickle cell. And, you know, I encourage people in my workplace to do their research on it because, I work a lot with young people. And in the facilities where I work with, if you work with young Black people, one of them is bound to be either affected by sickle cell through a relative or themselves have it. So it's good for you to be clued up on it. So the more I speak about it, the more I feel like it's a release for me. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah.
So speaking about what you go through.
Yeah, speaking about it to a therapist, to friends, family, spouse, it's important to speak about it.
Yeah. I think one of the things that has helped me when it comes to like the mental battle with sickle cell is having people around me that understand what I go through. I think it gets very dark when you're going through it. You're going through it alone, you know, and you feel like people around you don't understand it. Yeah. So I think it's very important for people with sickle cell or anyone who's going through a chronic illness or disease, not only sickle cell, have people around you that understand what you're going through. Right. And if you realize that people around you don't understand, help them understand. Yeah. You know, I feel like it's very easy to get into that mode of like, nobody gets what I'm going through. It's your duty to help people around you understand what you're going through. And sometimes it can feel like, oh, no one cares, but the people around you should care. Yeah. So, you know, I think that's something to think about. Yeah. I think the community of people around me have definitely supported me, down to like business partners, friends, cousins, family members that show up, you know, friends that show up. I definitely feel the love and support. And I think it's very important to guard yourself and protect yourself with your community. I'm a strong believer in community. I still believe in the traditions and the benefits of having a community. As much as we live in a world that is like very focused on individualism and being yourself and do it on your own, and you don't need anyone, and
no one's coming to save you. Self-made.
As much as I do believe that no one's coming to save you, but you have your community.
In a sense, community kind of sometimes speaks against that, because it's not that someone's coming to save you, but someone generally wants to be there for you.
For you.
Do you know what I'm saying? And embrace that and know how to embrace that. I feel like we've grown up and been programmed to not embrace that with having chronic illnesses. This is just me. Yeah. And sometimes families haven't helped when they've said, do you know what I'm saying? It's not helpful. Yeah. But that's why I feel like now there's a generation of our peers, so many of us that I've met in the last 4 or 5 years on social media, of people that I'm saying, this is my story. That's why there's so many of us coming out now, because whether we could speak about it or not back in the day, we probably didn't even know how to. We just know I'm sick all the time. And we know this thing called sickle cell. I remember going on holiday, bro, with one of my friends, and and his family, yeah. And we went to Tenerife, and as soon as I got to the hotel, jumped in a pool. Hot weather, cold pool, crisis.
Been there.
And this is in Spain, and I've gone to hospital, and they're like, "What is this? We don't know what it is." And I'm like, "Oh my!" And I'm young. I'm like 14, 15. And my friend's parents asked me, "What is sickle cell?" Like, and I'm telling them, "I don't know. Just like my blood just feels like it's freezing and whatever." And that was their mindset for years. Like, Ali's got sickle cell and his blood freezes. But now that I grew up and think about it, if your blood freezes, you're dead, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't know how to articulate what I had and explain it and understand it. And I feel like that was a lot of us. Now we've grown up and we're like, oh, okay, this is what sickle cell does. This is how it affects you. Doing our research on it, how many people it affects, how to avoid what kind of relationships to conversations to have in relationships, avoiding getting with someone who has sickle cell because you could pass it down because it's a hereditary disease. All of that kind of stuff we didn't know about. But now we're understanding and we're able to have a voice because of that.